Hear you perfectly
Yes,
now.
brilliant. I don't know why that happens sometimes. Just doesn't want to listen to me.
I, I stopped trying with the Zoom issues. Sometimes it wants to work, sometimes it doesn't want to work.
And we are up and running.
Cool.
So
Great.
welcome everybody today. I am super excited for our conversation today. It is an area of real estate. We're talking about ADUs today, additional dwelling units. Anybody who owns a single family home in the Bay Area is sitting on tremendous potential to have, you can use them for so many things. It could be a home office. If you're working from home now, you can add in your office in the backyard. It can be a guest house for any family that come to visit. It can be a rental unit where you can legally rent it out and actually bring in some income. And legislation has really changed a lot on these recently. And so we're super excited to talk with Zane today from Mighty Builders, startup operating out of Oakland, California. And it's an impressive operation where they actually use a huge 3D printer to make kind of part of the unit. So it's fascinating stuff, and I'm delighted to have you here today, Zane. So go ahead and tell us a little bit, maybe I think explain to people what an ADU exactly is
I have,
in your regards.
yeah, here, I can go a little bit into that. Here, I prepared some stuff.
Oh, excellent. So it's like we're teaching a class today.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple of these, and unfortunately, while ADUs have been around for a while, people still seem to have a lot of questions on what they are and what they're allowed to do. And especially with, like, as you mentioned, with these new 2020 rules that just started, a lot has changed. So I'm gonna actually probably just skip these first two because it's just
Perfect.
me a little bit where we're gonna go, well, I'll go over, which is kind of briefly over ADUs and then talk about what we specifically do here in Mighty Buildings and then opening up for some questions. Real quick, just who Mighty Buildings is, as Eddie mentioned, we are a VC-backed startup here in Oakland, California, trying to produce really beautiful, affordable, sustainable homes using 3D printing, robotics, and automation. Here in California, we have an ever-growing housing crisis, which is why they've made a lot of these ADU rules very lenient now to help address these problems. And we've had quite a few cool projects throughout California, ranging from San Ramon to San Diego. Skip the video, I got plenty to show you guys. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. Essentially, it's a secondary unit to your main house, and every residential property is allowed to have it. There's a lot of benefits of getting an ADU beyond just the extra living space. It's actually a great investment into your current assets, making it a very safe investment for you to be able to do, being able to increase the value of your property, as well as bring in a potential rental income, which you can then use to offset your mortgage to be able to have a nicer house.
And to kind of jump in there, I've been to the factory and I've been in a couple of these units, and I'll talk a little bit more about them as you go through it, but they look as good as they do in the photographs here. These are not doctored photographs.
Yeah,
so.
actually, these are not even at all photoshopped yet. Like, I still gotta do touch-ups on these. I took these at our
I'm looking at this
Diego
photo and
site
I can still see the
ago.
step ladder out there. There's a step ladder
Yeah.
in the yard there. I can still see.
Yeah, they need some touch-ups still, but it's nice to see the raw footage too. So as we mentioned a couple times already, there's a lot of new law changes that went into effect here in 2020. Really, the big idea is that they standardize ADU regulations throughout the states. So there's less variance from local jurisdiction to local jurisdiction. And now you're allowed in every residential property, at least one ADU, plus something called a junior accessory dwelling unit as well. And that is a small converted space of less than 500 square feet. So technically you're allowed to have 3 units on a single family residence property now. And in multifamily properties, you're allowed to have even multiple ADUs. So for instance, if you have a duplex, you're able to put 2 detached ADUs in the backyard versus just the one that you would be able to on a single family residence property.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. And just a quick question on the junior less than 500 square feet, can that be a separate structure, or does it have to be within the structure, the existing structure?
An existing converted space. You're allowed to add, I think it's about 100 square feet in, maybe it's 150. The way I kind of interpret it is if you have a room, you're able to build off that room to make the bathroom. Pretty much. Like it's just enough space for you to do like the kitchen or bathroom addition into that existing space, but it needs to be existing. So it's attached, generally attached.
So let me give you a kind of a common example for San Francisco with a single family. A lot of single families are single level above a garage. So we'll have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that's above a huge area that's, you know, was originally just the garage, and they might have an illegal room down there or something like that. So under the new legislation, somebody could put a junior ADU unit in that back of the garage area, and then a separate ADU structure from mighty buildings in the backyard.
Yes, but the important part about the junior ADU is it needs to be under 500 square feet. They are very small units. And as actually one of the lower points is with ADUs, there's no longer owner occupancy rules, which means you can rent the ADU as well as the main house separately, but those rules do not apply for junior ADUs. So if you have a junior ADU, they expect you to still live on the property.
Okay, good to know.
So they have the nuances of the codes, but yeah. The other 2 major ones, or actually 3 major ones I would like to mention is first, if you build under 750 square feet, there are no more impact fees being allowed to get charged. And that's your school fee, you know, housing development fee. I've seen arts fee.
And they add up.
There's tons of them. And those really add up. Like that could be $20,000 to $40,000 extra that you're now saving by being able to do a unit under 750 square feet. The other one,
they recognize that that was a big impediment with some clients where the fee structure was too expensive to move forward. So.
Yeah, and there's actually a second part about that too. While the effects of the second part is not as dramatic, they actually now need to charge the fees proportional to the main house. So if it's a huge house and you're building a small ADU that's only like 800 square feet, they're not going to be very expensive fees. But if you're building something that's the same size as your house, then they're going to charge you as if it's a new house. The other one is the reduction in setbacks. You know, it's now 4 feet across the board. Some areas it actually will be less than this. One thing to mention that these are zoning setbacks and there's still fire requirements that might make it further out. In a lot of cases, if you don't have fire sprinklers, you're gonna end up at a 5-foot setback, not a 4-foot setback. And lastly, I think this is really important just because from where I used to live, there was a lot of HOAs, but HOAs are no longer allowed to deny ADUs. They have to allow them in some way. They can still put their own limitations and sizes, designs, things like that, but they have to allow it, meaning literally every residential property is allowed an ADU at this point.
Wow.
Now, just to kind of wrapping back to what we do, Mighty Buildings provides a turnkey solution for ADUs and single family houses, but mostly ADUs, as you'll see when we look at our model sizes, they're a little bit on the smaller size, and we try to take out the headache of getting an ADU. So when we always ask people like, how do we get started? It's really just pick a design, one of our designs, find where you want to put it on the property, and we'll take it, take care of all.
You take it from there,
from start to finish.
And I think the value I've seen, the 1-bedroom unit you do is great. So that'd be a good example. You probably going to walk us through one of them.
I actually got those next. So
you got them on.
We have 2 different solution types, and I wanted to talk about them separately. One is module and one is panels. Our modules are really great because they have very, very short construction times. Our smallest unit, the studio here, because it's a single module, can actually ends up having a total construction time of less than a month in most cases. And that's including your foundation. The unit only takes us about 2.5 weeks to build in our facility. So as your foundation's curing, the unit's being built, and the actual installation, I keep saying it can take a day, but you know, you gotta get 5 subcontractors to show up on the same day. So I usually say it's usually about a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Because you got
every
to
now
get
and then,
the electrician has to. The electrician has to be there to hook it up. The plumber has to be there to hook it up because it's getting laid down from a truck on the foundation, right?
Yeah, and I have a video later on to show you how it gets dropped onto the foundation. But yeah, essentially you have to have a welder to do the welding connections to the foundation, electrician to you know, connect the electrical panel to the main house, as well as a plumber to do the water and sewer connections. So there's a couple elements still involved, and including there's a little bit of labor that happens on the unit itself, as we have pickup points for the crane and trucks, depending on the delivery type. And we need to then cover those up on the bottom here just to make it seem like a seamless design. On our larger units here, the Mighty Duo and Mighty Duos, we have 2 modules that are connected on site. And we actually just started a new version of our Mighty Duo B that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or 2-bedroom, 1-bath, my mistake, to kind of give a good, you know, option for people who are really planning to rent this out. So now it's under the threshold for impact fees, and it's at a point that you can easily able to rent it out to 2 individuals or a small family very easily with the 2 bedrooms. They're really great size units. Personally, I really love being the inside of the Duo B, but I think the Duo I looks great on sites. And I'm really excited to do a Duo I project soon, just because I just imagine it at the back of a yard where it's making a total courtyard in your you know, backyard, one house to the other with a huge courtyard. And you know, there's a restriction on fencing. You know, you're only able to do 6 to 8 feet in most areas. This is now you have a back fence that's the back of the building that ends up giving you a lot more privacy for your property as well.
Yeah, yeah. And just to, you know, people will see it, I think, in a little bit, the impressive thing about these, I've been in a Mighty Duo. Is it a Mighty Duo 1 or a Mighty Duo I?
It's for the
yeah. So so they're actually, you know, it's quite large. Like 700 square feet is the standard for a 1-bedroom condo in San Francisco. That's pretty common size for a 1-bedroom condo. And the other thing that's super impressive is they're built around a steel K. Like it's a welded, it's stronger than the wood construction that most homes that we sell or even condos are built on. Can you speak a little bit about their just the seismic integrity of
yeah, I mean, I'll show, I have a video later on where I'm talking about the production where we'll be able to see the steel frame, but just to kind of give one very simple example of how more structurally integrity, you know, the extra structural needs that we would need for these units. A normal building is made to be sat on the ground and just stay there for 50, 100 years. Yeah, it's made to shake a little bit side to side, but that's it. These are made to be picked up, moved in all directions, so they have to be a lot stronger than your traditional home. On top of that, we use all steel framing. So there's barely any timber at all in the units. There's a little bit of plywood for separations and, you know, to help fill up gaps, make things a little bit more precise. But for the most part, it's all steel and our material. And then synthetic materials for finishing. So we use like Ceraclad fiber cement siding to make it so it's a low maintenance cost on the outdoor cost, as well as LVP flooring from Cali Bamboo to make it so it's long lasting and again, very low maintenance.
And a sustainable material.
Yes. I think the maintenance comes with the sustainability. If you have to be working it all the time, you're using a lot of material to keep it up.
Yeah.
So the other one I wanted to talk about is our Mighty House Kits, which are our new models that we're introducing right now. And these are our panel solutions. So this is a rendering of what it ends up looking like. But we have several different versions of this, ranging from a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 865 square foot, to what would actually be a small single family house at 1440, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. The cool thing about these solutions is with the big modules, they're 14 feet wide. You need to be able to fit that somewhere down the road. You need to be able to fit that either down your driveway or use a very large crane to pick it up over your house, which is very limiting for a lot of people in terms of accessibility. It makes it not a great solution for people on hillsides or just have private roads that they need to get down, and it does limit the factor. And the other aspect of it is power lines are generally in the way in a lot of areas. So we were looking through that with our initial designs and wanted to create a solution that would work for other people as well. So with these, they come in a shipping container, so it can fit down a normal 8-foot long road, and they come in larger, or I guess smaller prefabricated pieces that are from exterior to interior finish. So you go from needing 16 feet access to only needing 7-foot access, which most side yards are going to be able to use.
Yeah.
You still have a lot of prefabricated components, so we're expecting only about 2 months of on-site construction time, but you end up getting that access that most people are actually going to need, especially when you have these larger size units.
Interesting. All right. And will you possibly come up with a size here that will fit into the under 700 square feet for those people who have limited access, that they'd be able to choose this version?
Yes, it will be a future design. We're actually partnering up with quite a few other design firms to kind of pitch new designs through this technology. So they might not look the same as this. They might take a different approach. Just for you guys to know, all of our designs are done through very notable architecture firms. This is actually done through ERYC down in LA. So we partner up with notable firms to bring beautiful architecture and use it through our solution. And the eventual idea, just to kind of give you an idea more about what we're going towards, is we're actually building design tools for people to take their designs, create them into a printable code. So we're able to then print them out for them and switch between more custom projects beyond just our prefabricated, pre-approved designs. And just to kind of show again, like the idea of the panels, it comes as like, I keep explaining it like building like Legos. It really feels like building like Legos. And they're huge, huge pieces still. Like it's a 10-foot by 6-foot panel. So it's still a large piece, but it's finished from inside to out.
And then the electrical and the plumbing are already in the panels.
Yeah, well, they have chaseways for them to be able to run through, but all that stuff is done on site, just because, I mean, it'd be hard to connect each electrical in between the panel. It's either easier just to run one long line once they're all lined up.
Okay.
So now time to go a little bit about how we implement all of these things. Initially, it's not that much different than your traditional build, except for the fact that it's a lot faster. With your traditional builds, you're going through a lot of different, design professionals, architects, structural engineers, general contractors. You have a lot of customization in it, which also means a lot of time having to pick things and figure out stuff and go back and forth with different pricing. You end up having very long plan reviews due to all these variables and long construction times. A general house, about 750 square feet, is going to end up being 6 to 9 months construction time traditionally. Versus going through a modular solution where it'll only be about a month to 2 months. Again, with no headaches, offsite construction. With anyone who's done a home remodel knows how much of a headache it is to have people building on your site. So I really do think the offsite part is really great, along with more precision in the actual build.
And I also think just that the planning department, if you're doing a custom home, you have to go through the whole planning process, and that in itself is a year to 18 months.
Yeah,
the rules. But the rules are very, they're very defined for you and the ADUs, and you basically, what's interesting about your concept is because you're building the same unit all the time, you already have complete approvals from the different planning boards.
Yeah, so it's actually, and I can explain it in more detail if you'd like, but it's actually through the state. So we have a state approval that's valid through all jurisdictions. And it's done through HCD, which is the Housing Community Department, which is now the enforcement office for ADU regulations. So they are valid everywhere. And the honest, real beauty of it is not even in the planning review, it's in your inspections.
Yeah.
There are so few inspections on site because they all happen in the factory. And in all honesty, you can actually tell the inspector he's not allowed to step in the unit at all. And I have done that before on projects where they were being a hard inspector and I'm like, you are not allowed to come inside of this unit. It is not your jurisdiction.
Wow.
Yeah,
that in itself is amazing. Like that cuts out so much of a time factor. And then also to just add in to people, like these come with the flooring, with the appliances, with everything already in place, ready to go. When you leave after installing it on the site, it is usable that evening.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you got to go through final inspection still. That takes a little bit of time, depending on their, availability. But technically, you could live in it already. I would.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
So I just wanted to kind of jump into like how it would go if you were to pick us to do your ADU. You would go through our website. You pick the unit that you're interested in. We actually do have an option now where you can pick no unit and let us kind of do a feasibility report and let you know which ones work best for your property. Okay. From there, that's a reservation fee to send the inspector on. That's partially refundable. We would go out to the site with either our GC partners or honestly myself, because I'm one of our project managers who do all of our permitting. Check out the site, be able to determine the site-specific costs that are going to end up happening. The ADU itself, the building, we already have predetermined. And earlier the slide, they had all the pricing on it. That's the pricing of the building. As soon as you put in that reservation, that's locked in. That's a good, 2/3 to half of your project cost is locked in at that point. What the things that change from site to site are going to be your foundation costs, how far you're going to have to, trench your utilities. And those are where the variables come in. And that's where the site inspection comes in, to be able to determine those, as well as determine as many potential obstacles that could come up along the way. We try to get all this stuff up front so you don't have as many surprises along the road. And again, one of those things that is just a known fact about construction is the change orders. And we're trying to avoid that whole aspect. We actually have a second point in our contract where we reevaluate, and that's the only point we're allowed to change pricing.
Wow. So just if I am, say, ADU curious, what is the low, because it's a pretty low barrier of entry to figure out what I can do, right? As far as, or is it, do I have to pay a $5,000 retainer to?
No, so the reservation fee, which I mentioned, is a $1,000 reservation fee. It's 100%. So we go through three parts of it. The first one we call a compliance check right here. And that's just quickly checking online that there's no really conflicting zoning code. So earlier we were saying zoning, but in reality, it's the building the reviews that we save with the pre-approved plans. We still have to go through zoning because that's things like design aspects and setbacks. While the setbacks are also pretty standardized, so it's pretty easy to confirm that now. Some areas still have something called design compatibility. I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head somewhere that's really known for this. Blackhawk's a very well-known area up here in the Bay, and they have design compatibility rules where pretty much the ADU needs to look fairly similar to your main house. So like the things they determine that are like roof pitches, exterior materials, and colors generally. The roof pitch sometimes is the one that gets us in trouble because all of our designs are flat roofs. And there's not a whole lot of flat roofs out there now because it's a very modern thing. So if we can determine that, just online through those checks, it's 100% refundable at that point. We don't want to take money from anyone who's not able to do a project. After that, we schedule a site inspection. That's when the $1,000 reservation becomes 50% refundable. And that's because we want to pay that inspector for his time. It's usually one of our DC partners. So just to make sure that time is, shown that it's valuable, it's the money to make sure that they get, it's for that. At that point, if the project's feasible and you still don't want to do it, it's 50% refundable. If you do move forward, that extra $500 goes towards the project itself. The retainer here, you sign a contract with us for the actual project with the timeline and everything. And it goes towards the initial documents we need to get together for permitting.
Okay. So ultimately it means a full-on feasibility study is a $500 cost, which in the scheme of everything, like if you were getting an architect to go and design building and in an ADU in the bottom of your, the garage level of your house, you're going to spend 10 to 15 grand on that. So $500 to know where you're going to be at with this is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I always tell people like you're able to get, even if you're very early in your search, you're able to get a lot of good information that most general people won't have or will take a lot of time for them to be able to find out. We give you all of your zoning code requirements that are going to affect you. We check out for anything that might be a delivery issue, even if you're going through some other prefab person. You know, we go through, we go through everything that your utility company might charge you. So like we check if you might incur a water meter upgrade or electrical meter upgrade. So you really have a good idea of what your full scope of work is going to end up being for your project by the end of the study. It's not like a 1-2 page thing. Like this is a 8 to 15 page report in some cases.
Great. Excellent.
So after that, we go into a contract discussion. And if we sign a contract, you will pay a retainer that goes towards the documents for permitting. You know, while we have the pre-approval, you still need site plan, elevations, foundation plan, utility connection plan. That's going to be the same for every place. And in some cases, you might need some other additional documents like soils report, property survey. Like I've done projects all over the place. There's sometimes the cities ask for some pretty ridiculous things too. I had to do some really funny tree survey, like tree reports before to determine trees that were on opposite sides of the property from where the construction was happening, if they were okay. So every city is a little different in this, and that's kind of things that we would also determine during your site assessment.
Okay.
After that, we submit for permits. Permits are literally the longest part of our entire process because it's the only thing we are not able to control. Every city is different. In some cities like LA City or San Jose, you can get a permit in a week. In other cities, it might take 4 months. And if you're in a special jurisdiction like a coastal commission, or you know, I know in LA they have specific plans, that could even be 6 to 9 months of permitting. And that's just the unfortunate truth. No matter what builder you're going through, they're going to go through the same process. The good thing is, because of our pre-approved plan sets, the actual building itself doesn't need to be reviewed. So when they actually have to do their reviews, the review time is shorter. Unfortunately, the permitting process is not necessarily determined by review time, but by backlog. So that's kind of where we say it doesn't change that
And
much.
just because a majority of our kind of watchers and listeners are Alameda County and San Francisco County. What are the general timeframes you've seen in those two? Like, I know you've got different cities and different departments, but
Yeah,
so like for Oakland or Berkeley or San Francisco.
So for Oakland was very interesting because it's 100% backlog. So it was a 6-week period for our permits to get approved the first time. And it was 6 weeks on the guy's desk and he did the review in an hour. So that's kind of thing with Oakland. You'll get a determination when you submit how big the backlogs are, and that's going to determine how long it's going to take. And it will literally take them a day to review, but it just takes some time to get to the project.
Oakland allows you to pay for to expedite though.
Yes, but it's at the plan checker's discretion because it's actual overtime for them. So they have to actually want to do the overtime to do the expedited process. I don't do. And unfortunately, because all their backlogs are so great, not that many of them actually want to do expedited.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great job if you want to go on vacation and you need to make extra money. You're like, all right, I'll just take on some expedited.
Do a couple projects overnight. You know, it'd be
a couple of projects overnight
at the end of the day. But yeah, that's how it ends up working. Is you end up paying extra hours for overtime for them for expedited service there. Other areas in the Alameda and Bay Area County, it's generally been 2 to 4 months. It's usually about 2 to 3 in most cases. So it's a 60-day review is the the maximum they're allowed to take. And then you usually go through 1 round of comments. No matter what, I always say, like, doesn't matter how perfect you get your plans, they're going to give you 1 round of comments because it's the only way for them to show that they're doing their job.
Yeah, they have to show, they have to ask a question of why is the concrete 6 inches higher here than it is over there?
Yeah. They'll even do like just the little things. Like when I used to do custom projects, because there are a lot more variables, we would actually leave certain things out on purpose so they would catch. So we would like, oh, these are easy things that we could quickly fix. So that way they show that they did their review and wouldn't check so as much on everything else.
Good.
After your
So-
permits are approved, we start building your unit. Like I mentioned, the studio unit only takes about 2 weeks to build. Our duo units take about 4 weeks, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for your foundation to cure. So while everything on the site is being prepared, we're actually building your unit. And just to kind of go over the site preparation, you end up compacting the soil, doing all the rebar, and just laying out the foundation, which is pretty much the same as any other project. The only special thing is we embed these metal plates here, which are where our welding connections happen to the unit itself. And I do want to mention, while you're seeing here on slab on grade, and in a lot of our photos, we also see slab on grade foundations, it's not the foundation type, it's the welding connection that matters. So we can work with any foundation, piers, stem walls, whatever works for your site.
Because all the weight is on that connection.
Yeah, well, it's not even about the weight, it's about keeping them together. The foundation is where all the weight's going, and we can always make any foundation work. Actually, I actually think the piers in a lot of cases will work better, especially with hillside sites. But most of our sites have been flat so far, so slab on grades, very easy to do. And that's why we've been doing them.
Cool.
While this is happening, you're also trenching to your existing utilities. In some cases, you're going to be able to tap into that existing sewer. In others, you're going to have to go to the main lateral coming to the house. That's a jurisdictional call. And it varies dramatically from place to place on where you would need to do it. For instance, Oakland, you can tap to the house, but once you go to San Ramon, 30 minutes away, you have to go to your main lateral. So that is something that we determine early on in the process to determine utility connections. They just connect to your, the existing, they trench out, and they just connect right onto the unit right there. All our utility
And I think
connections
that's just
place.
And I think that's an important point to get across. With ADUs, there is no separate service going to them. You tap into your existing utility services. So you tap into, you're a sub-meter off your main meter for your gas and electric and whatnot.
I do want to mention separate meters are an option, but they're very expensive. So out of all of our clients so far, we've only had one person do it, and it's because she's a multiple property owner and she rents out all of the units. And it's like, I even mentioned, oh, you could just do some math with a sub meter. She's like, I don't want to do that. It's too much of a headache. Like, I want to just let it there and forget about it and let the rent come in. So that's the reason she did it. In most cases, it's a very expensive thing to do, so I don't recommend most people doing it. If you really plan to rent it out, I think sub meters are a great choice for an inexpensive way to be able to calculate usage separately. So let's see if my video will work right. So this is where we're going to be able to see a little bit on how the units are actually produced. So this is our 3D printer going quite fast, time lapse, building up a panel. Just to give you an idea, this panel is was about 3 hours to produce. So it is a very quick process, even though in here you're seeing it built very quickly. I don't know if you noticed, but before they started putting on all the panels, but you were able to see the steel frame we were talking about earlier, and how very heavy and structurally put together.
These things are solid.
Yeah, they're steel. I keep saying it's a very, very pretty bunker, to be honest.
Yeah. with nice sliders and yeah. And so here it is getting delivered, coming down the road.
That's coming down the road on the truck. And I actually wanted to switch a different video, which is it getting craned off for our Duo B unit, because it's aren't you getting big? Here we go. Because it's a little bit nicer to see on this site because more space. So we end up picking up the units with a crane most of the time. There are other alternative methods of getting it onto the property, but due to them having to usually be behind the main house and for access reasons, it ends up usually being a crane. Like I mentioned, we end up doing the welding connections. And this was kind of what a Duo B unit ends up looking as it comes to your site. There's still some stuff that needs to happen, but for the most part, your building's pretty much done after this welding happens.
And just to explain to people, because of the width of these units, it's actually 2 units that get put together. So that's the opening, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is 16 feet wide or 14 feet wide?
No, so that one is actually our Duo B unit, which is 2 modules. So it's 28 feet by 25 feet. Each module is 14 feet wide.
14 feet wide.
Yeah, we need 16 feet access for them, road access, because I mean, I say if you have a really good driver, you can do 15, but I don't like risking that most of the time because not every truck driver is the best truck driver. So that's why I say 16 feet.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, if you got the real good truck drivers, I do know a couple of those guys, you could probably do it with 14 and a half even, but that's really pushing it. Okay, so that's all I really had prepared to show you guys. I do have
That's awesome.
3D scan walkthrough if you guys want to see a walkthrough of a studio unit.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
cool.
I just want to, let me put this
Because
up.
I think a studio unit would probably be, say, the choice that somebody would use if they, with shelter in place, if they wanted to have a home office, or something along those lines.
Yes, it's a really great, just multifunctional space for just something where you're not planning to rent it out for a permanent use, but it's for guests to stay, a secondary office. These individuals, they use as mostly a pool house. They have kids and they're in San Ramon. And it's quite hot during the summer, and they during their testimonial, he literally was like, "We just wanted somewhere that was AC to sit in while we watch the kids in the pool at 100-degree weather suffering."
I mean, AC and laundry, it has more than a lot of places here have anyway.
And honestly, they are fully equipped with appliances and all the cabinetry and everything. The only thing that you end up buying is the furniture itself. So the Murphy bed and the coffee table would are additional things. Honestly, they're super well equipped. I really can't stop talking about it.
And the quality of
found out that
materials.
microwave is an oven too. So they're like oven, stovetop, they're now going to be equipped with full fridges, and we have a full electrical version of the unit now for people in San Jose and Berkeley.
So cool.
Wow.
I think it's
So
just going
cool.
to go in a circle. Oh no, that's the end of it.
And you do have a solar option too, right? Where solar can be added to the roof.
Yes. So currently, just with the way the pre-approvals work, in 2020, there was actually a new solar requirement being added to construction, where all new residential or all new construction needs solar now. Because our pre-approvals are in a previous code set, though, we're exempt from that rule. So all of our units are solar ready, and our larger units will have solar because they're new plants in their new the current codes. But it is an optional extra for our smaller units. Our San Diego plan ended up getting the solar package. It works quite well for them. It's through Sunflare currently, but we're always talking to vendors and trying to find stuff that will be the best option for people. We want to make things work the best as it possibly can.
Dane, this is amazing. And I'm going to bring Sean, our trusty lender, into the conversation here to kind of, how do lenders look at this kind of stuff? If say you've got an ADU and it's rented out, does that benefit you? Is it more difficult? How do things work on that?
My mind's blown a little bit right now. I just want to buy a lot, throw a pool in the middle, and then put 2 of the 2 bedrooms in there and call it a day. So
one for
a call after. You saw my number. You saw our number there. Just give me a call.
I mean, 3 kids, put the kids over there. I'll be over here with the wife. Everyone's happy. No, I love it. I love the design. I love the simplicity. I had a call today from a client who she's in Silicon Valley. She was like, I want to add an ADU to my property. She's a teacher. She's like, this would just be great passive income for me. So to answer your question, Eddie, the rental income isn't recognized from like a qualifying perspective, where if it was a true 2 to 4 unit property, you can use the rental income to offset your mortgage for qualifying. They consider if it's a single family residence or 1 unit property and you're renting a room or what do we used to call EDUs? In-law unit. It's great because it does set off it from a cash flow perspective for the owner. There's an offset, but not for qualifying. So I'm kind of wondering if that'll start to change though, because it's becoming so much more common to have these.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what I kind of saw,
And I think with the change in
is that it's just a basic misunderstanding of what it is at this point. And people who get it have options, and people who don't get it just are not there yet. We were seeing a lot of people really starting to understand it more pre-COVID. And then that happened and everyone kind of cut back on their new programs. So it is kind of finding the right lender for this versus going to whoever your best, have the best relationship with.
And that's where with the client I talked to this morning, we kind of looked at the three different options. Like Silicon Valley Land Trust or something like that has a program that's specific because Silicon Valley needs to add more properties. And this is a good way to do it, but there's a lot of rules when you're using their money of what you can rent it for, all these rules. And I'm like, I don't really like that. So with rates being as low as they are, with people that have equity, $200,000 I think was the highest price tag I saw there. Just do a cash out refinance, pull out 200 grand, and you're done. And then even though we're not using the income to offset, you know what you're going to rent it for, and you're going to have that for your personal cash flow anyway. So simple. It's kind of simple.
There is one thing that's important to point out. So there is the cost of the unit.
Yeah, I was about to thank you.
Yeah, so there's the cost of the unit. So say that the one bedroom duo I is, how much is that? 139?
139 now.
149
for the I shape.
For the I. So you're in around 150. Then you're probably going to have about, give or take, 80 grand worth of site prep work, right? So
for like our one bedroom or duo models, we're usually seeing them all in at about 220 to 270, depending on the site. Our lowest price point for the studio I've seen is down to 140 for amazing sites that had everything lined up. And for our largest unit, the biggest contract we have right now, and I'm going to say, just to give you a notice, these guys have some major retaining walls in here too, is about 450, 460. And that's including all the grading. So that's they have an extensive amount. But most of these ADU projects are going to be in the 200 or 175 to 275 range.
I mean,
and so that's what I'm saying is, I've had clients that are just going to liquidate stock, right? I'm going to liquidate stock. Well, if you can borrow money as cheap as it is now and your returns higher somewhere else, maybe don't liquidate the stock or do a combination of both. It's become very attainable and simple to add a Mighty Builders property, right? It's so much easier than it used to be. Like I have a client who's a realtor. We just refinanced his investment property in San Jose where he did a traditional ADU. Final's not done. It's been a long drawn out process. Building's finished, been done for like a year, but the paperwork isn't done yet. So it just creates other complications.
Well, the thing that I really would like single family homeowners who have this opportunity, or somebody, a two unit condo building that's a conversion that's got a lot that they want to share. If you think about it, like, let's say you wanted to invest in investment real estate. You're like, hey, in the Bay Area, I'll buy a one bedroom condo because I can rent those out in like fancy buildings for, $4,000 a month, give or take. Those units on average will cost you, if you're lucky, you'll get one for $700, $750. That it's a good investment and you're going to have protection of capital and it's more like a forced savings account. But here you can get an identical unit in the backyard of your house for $240,000. That's a third of the cost of going and buying a investment property that you're going to rent out somewhere else.
Plus it's a safer investment because it's reinvesting into a current asset versus having to buy a new asset that has risk.
Mm-hmm. And increasing the value of your current home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eddie, that was going to be my question: is if it's the building is a third of the cost, is there like a rough estimate of, because properties that have ADUs are in such high demand now, is there an estimate of how much an ADU increases your property's value?
Unfortunately, it varies very much based on how ADU friendly that place is. So my understanding of how they calculate it is, they make a circle, couple miles out or mile out. They check all the properties for which ones have ADUs and see how they increase the property value, and they compare it to that. Because ADUs are not everywhere yet, if they don't have enough data, that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the trade-off is, in some of these areas, you have very affluential neighborhoods next to not as affluential neighborhoods. And if you're in not so affluential neighborhood and the circle gets into the affluential, you get a huge increase. But vice versa is the same thing. If you're in a very affluential next to not so much, and they have to increase the circle, you're not going to get as much value out of it. Fortunately, ADUs are popping up faster. The calculations are becoming more and more accurate. San Jose is just pushing them out. I know LA is doing the same. Oakland is really big on it right now. Like, they're all making it very simple and trying to push it faster through the process. Mainly because we're missing our housing goals in like insane amounts. Like, it's supposed to be 5 million houses by 2025, and we're doing 100,000 a year right now. We're not even gonna get 1 million.
It's and I would say we see in like the different parts of Oakland on flip houses that are over in the Nobe area of Oakland, the North Oakland, Emeryville, or Berkeley, Emeryville area. A lot of the flippers and developers there will add in small like studio ADUs, and I think they'll be kind of those properties probably sell $300,000 or $400,000 more than just a house by itself. So I wouldn't hazard a guess that you're close to, you spend $1, you'll get $2 back. Would be my, to kind of answer your question, Sean. So you get, I think the opportunity that exists with this low impact form of construction on a homeowner to be able to do this is amazing. It's a better opportunity in some cases for a lot of people than to go and look to try buy some sort of a rental in another state. Yeah. So that's awesome. So Sean, any other updates in the world of lending?
Not particularly. Rates are still staying low. We went from the most volatile in March to like the flattest tide we've ever seen for like the last 3 to 4 weeks. So rates are still at the absolute lows of all time. Self-employed loans are still a little bit more difficult on the jumbo side of things. But really, we just have to get out of this situation to start to see us return to normal. But we keep having the spikes, and like I'm supposed to go to Tahoe this weekend, and now we might not be able to go because they're having spikes up there. So not a whole lot's changed, but rates are still incredibly low. There's still a lot of opportunities. The most interesting thing to me is the migration, as we've been looking at it, creating more opportunity for people who want to buy in the Bay Area, because people are, now that they can work from home, are leaving the Bay Area. So that's about it.
Yeah, speaking
Hayley,
of Tahoe, we heard
from
Jeremy yesterday. Jeremy Jacobson, who's an agent up in Truckee, was on a few weeks ago on our webinar, if you remember, and he checked in yesterday, and he just said, like, it's blowing up so much that they've started to adopt the way that we do things in San Francisco with regards to like setting offer dates, because there's so much interest, and people waiving inspections, sellers doing pre-inspections, which is all like commonplace here in the Bay Area because of the competitive nature of our market. But it's turning into that up in Tahoe, which is just like unbelievable. So yeah. And he said that most of the people who are buying up there are renters here. Yeah. So yeah, it's incredible, pretty crazy. But I did see some photos over July 4th of the Truckee River and River Ranch, and it did not look like a COVID-friendly environment. So I like to go every year, but I have to say that was kind of scary. Stay safe out there. And then also in the market-wise here in San Francisco, it's pretty steady from last week or 2 weeks ago to the last week. I think we had like 193 new listings 2 weeks ago, and we've had like 220 this week. So little increase, but it's kind of holding steady.
And the other data point that came up yesterday in our agents kind of forum from agents from a bunch of different companies is the absorption rate of inventory, especially single family homes, is actually way higher than it was last year. So, you know, we have increased levels of inventory, but we have, I think the absorption rate on condos is lower, and the absorption rate on single families is higher. So we're moving through single family home inventory at a very tight clip, and not so tight a clip on condo inventory. So condos right now, you really need to have all your boxes checked and to be you know, gone quickly. So
I'm finding even the single family homes where we used to have the 14-day marketing period before we were submitting offers, and it's shorter now in a lot of cases, which is insane. But I think it's really because everybody's working from home and schedules are more flexible, and so people aren't waiting until the weekend to go to an open house, so they're going in right away. And anecdotally, we saw that a few times this week, where like one property got 9 offers, another one took a preemptive for 300 over or 200 over ask. Like it's still wild out there.
Are you at the dog pound? Yeah, I'm teasing Hayley there. You can hear the dog. It's actually my dog.
I was trying to assuage your dog, Eddie, by the way. That was not my poodle that I was hanging out with. Poor Carmen's freaking out there. I'm gonna go get her. Bye guys, nice to meet you. Zane, thanks for coming, Sean.
Yeah. So excellent. We'll wrap it up for today. If we're looking for Mighty Buildings, Zane, how do we find you?
Here, I'll reshare. So this is not my number, by the way, but you can email us at info@mightybuildings.com.
Okay.
You can forget the real estate agents part here, but you can visit us at mightyhouses.com. If you're an agent, we do have an agent partnership program. You can check it out here. And then this is our sales number right here to be able to call, and they'll be able to connect you with me directly. If you are interested in getting a hold of me directly for information, it would just be ZAYN@mightybuildings.com.
Perfect.
And if you want to see that, I'll try to go back to the very beginning so you can get my spelling my name. Anyone missed that?
There you go.
My first name and mightybuildings.com. Cool. It was very nice.
Perfect. Zane, this has been on. Just remind us how we find you. How do we find you before we go to Sean?
So you can Google Sean, S-E-A-N, Herrero, H-E-R-R-E-R-O, kind of everywhere from there. On Instagram @AdventureLender, and that's basically it.
That's awesome. And then we can always, we're lost most of the time at elevationrealestate.com. So Zane, you have been a tremendous guest, and you know, thank you so much for sharing all this and stuff. So looking forward to kind of working with you as we move forward.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being on.
John, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, cheers. Have a
Bye, everyone.
great week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.